All right, good morning. We are live. And this is the New Thought and World Religion class for December 31st, the last day of 2023. And Jen and I are doing a class about the book Ask Your Guides by Sonia Choquette.
Has anybody here ever read the book? Anybody? Yeah.
Part of it?
That one, but I read
Other books by Sonia Choquette.
Trust Your Vibes is another good one.
Yeah.
I read that one.
Ask your guides, trust your vibes.
Yes, right? Yeah.
She has a theme.
She does have a thing?
Yeah,
Yes,
she's-
absolutely.
Right. And would somebody mind closing those doors just so that sometimes in the foyer it gets loud?
Thank you.
And Jen is going to pull up her brief centering practice meditation. She's going to read it for us.
Yes. So if everybody would close your eyes and place your hands over your heart. I want you to feel your heartbeat. Focus on your breath. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Breathe in and out. Feel your heartbeat. Clear your mind of any clutter. Lay your worries aside. Be open to receive and receive some more. And breathe. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Open your eyes. Let's begin.
You missed what? The slide?
Usually when she has you read, you have to go down the slide.
Oh, the slide. Oh, yeah. She also, Sonia, usually if she's leading a meditation, she has
I actually almost did that because I do that in yoga too.
Yeah.
Where my yoga teachers like that. Yeah.
So I just want to do a brief introduction. So we are doing the book Ask Your Guides by Sonia Choquette, and the subtitle is Calling in Your Divine Support System for Helping with Everything in Life. And I read the book several years ago, probably 15 years ago now. There's an updated version. This is the updated version. But I read the original. And when I read it, it really, for me, it was very enlightening because it was really just answering some things that I had already experienced. It was giving language to some things that I had already experienced in life. And so that was my experience, and I've used it on and off. It's not something that I necessarily actively use on a regular daily basis, and it's something that I seem to return to in my spiritual path. And I did want to, in the introduction, want to mention Myrtle Fillmore, because Myrtle Fillmore, in her writings, she didn't write books, but we have a bunch of letters that she sent out to different people, and she talks about receiving guidance specifically from Jesus. But the way that she puts it into language, it's very clear that it's similar to what Sonia is talking about, and Sonia just kind of broadens and diversifies the spiritual systems, the spiritual, I want to say entities, but the diverse type options of guides that we have. And so, did you want to explain your experience just briefly?
Well, as far as like meeting my guides?
Well, I mean the book.
Oh yeah, with the book. So James actually taught this as a spirit group last year, so that's how I came to learn about this book. That was really cool. I learned, like he said, like I probably already knew some of these things, but I didn't have like words to put to it because I didn't know. I think probably all of us have that experience. And so it was really cool to learn about paying attention when they're actually talking to you. Or
Does she sound like she's on mic?
I am on mic.
Yes. It doesn't sound like you're on mic, and I know the people online,
I can turn it up a bit.
Also, my
Keep
shirt
going.
might be impeding.
Yeah, when you
when you hold it up, you can hear it.
Okay.
Is that better? Yeah,
Yes.
no, maybe.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like I said, it kind of helped me learn how to listen to them and see them, because there's just things that happen that people don't, like, they're unexplained, quote unquote, and then when you read this book, it's like, oh, I get it now. It is explainable. So that's kind of my experience with it. And like James, I don't necessarily put it into my daily practice, but it does pop up more often than not. So, yeah.
I know, and just one of the things for me, when right before I found this book, I had a very Christian-centric worldview. And I was spending a lot of time, I was in the process of deconstructing some things, and I was going to a Franciscan monastery in Kansas City, and they had a prayer trail, and I was walking the prayer trail. And I kept sensing a presence, and I just kept thinking, oh, that must be Jesus, that must be Jesus. And it was actually in kind of like the synchronicities that happen, which we'll talk about in this class. But the synchronicities that happened, it wasn't Jesus, it was actually St. Francis. And St. Francis has been one of my guides since then. And this book helped me contextualize that, because in my worldview at the time, I did not have a worldview that included anyone else other than the Holy Spirit, and that was it. And we'll talk about the Spirit as well. So let's start with the wide world of Spirit. And I kind of addressed this initially, that Spirit is diverse. I mean, if you think about just looking at the physical realm is diverse. There's a whole diversity of different types of animals, and even just with humans, humanity is very diverse. And so we wanted to Sonia actually starts by talking about connecting with our own spirit. That's sort of the gateway into it. So, and you were going to talk about that?
Yeah, so that's part of the reason that we did just the brief centering that I chose to do, because the best way to tap into your own spirit is to be quiet with yourself. Sit with yourself. That's really the only way to connect with your own spirit in my observances. And so I like to be in a quiet place. I like to, sometimes maybe have calm music playing, or like rain or some kind of, nature sounds, because nature also for me is a good way to sit with my spirit. And we'll talk about that later too. But so for me, that's how you connect. Like, you can't connect with the other spirit guides until you connect with your own spirit. Like, it's all connected. And you have to be able to sit in yourself and find your own spirit, and listen to your own spirit, and talk to your own spirit. So that's how it works for me personally, but I feel like that probably works for a lot of people in general. And it's really wild, because one of the first things she talks about in the book is naming your spirits, and a lot of times they will come to you and just tell you their names. So the first name that I ever received was Layla, and she's very sassy, as her name might say. But yeah, the name literally came to me out of I don't know anybody named Layla. Like, I've never known anybody named Layla. It's not a name that I'm familiar with as a rule. So I knew it was like a spirit guide of mine, and her name was Layla. And it was very cool to start listening for her, or seeing her name somewhere, or hearing her name in a song, or that's how I know she's speaking to me, or trying to communicate with me. Is that I think that's the importance of having a name. It doesn't have to be like an actual name, it could be any name, but that's just happens to be one of the first ones that came through for me, was Layla. And it's kind of fun to know your spirits in that way. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I mentioned too, diversity of spirit, diversity within spirit. But in Sonia Choquette's worldview, there is just one spirit, and that we're all interconnected through one spirit. and she uses the term spirit. It's kind of similar to, within Unity we say there's only one presence, one power in the universe, and in my life, God the good omnipotent. So when we say that, we're just acknowledging one. And the same is true within spirit. So when we say we're connecting to our spirit, that's actually the access point to connecting to diversity. The diversity of guidance that's available to us within spirit. Did you have anything to say about that?
You did that good.
Okay. Yep. Can you get the microphone over here? Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
And that's not to say they aren't working with us before we're aware of them.
Correct.
Because they are constantly there.
Yes.
And in Heart's Desire book of hers, she says we have at least 33. But, which I thought was interesting. But they're constantly there trying to talk to us, but if we're not quiet enough, we can't hear them.
Exactly.
And Jeffrey Allen is an energy worker, and he said he can actually see them now. And he said that he'll have somebody that's saying, I can't connect with my spirit guide, and he can see the spirit guide sitting there going,
Right.
So, they're there whether we know they are or whether we're quiet enough to hear them. And they're still guiding us. It's just that we think, oh, that was just a coincidence.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
So I'm just going to give to those of us who don't fit the pattern that you guys are talking about. I don't do meditation well, don't do quiet. When I quiet my other parts, that says I'm ready to listen to them. So for those of us who don't do well in meditation and all that, all you have to do is have a desire and an intention to talk to them. You don't have to set, there's not this big rule about how to do it. I spend most of my time, when I'm washing dishes, I look out the window and have beautiful things around, and that's when I communicate while I'm doing something. So for those of you who go, what?
Right.
There's other ways.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. These are just our experiences that we're talking about, and that's why we wanted to open it up for discussions, because like Wendy said, there's many ways that people can connect with spirit.
Right, and there's many centering practices.
Yes.
I would say that whatever gets you, if it's a walk in the woods, I mean, if that's what's
Right.
getting you, what does Abraham say, tapped into, or somebody, anyway, getting tapped into this energy, this vibration. And this is really about spiritual guidance. And I don't know that spiritual guidance has to come specifically through, this guide said this, I mean, certainly that's something, at least in our community, we talk a lot about Abraham. I would consider Abraham a spirit guide in a sense. And so that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to bring this into our consciousness when I did the spirit group, is that this is a part of it. But again, spiritual guidance doesn't necessarily have to come one way. You don't necessarily have to know a spirit guide's name or classify them. That's one of the things that this book does, is it classifies different categories of spirit guides, which I appreciated when I was going through, when I first read the book. And I mean, I'm sure, is everybody here, have you ever experienced spiritual guidance, like guidance that you believe was from, Yeah, so the vast majority of people feel like they've experienced spiritual guidance. So there's not, and it doesn't necessarily have to come through just one way.
Just before we go out of the connection, because you were talking about receiving, it's different for me. That's where I make the connection, is washing my dishes. But when my spiritual guides want to talk to me, my hand shakes like a phone is ringing.
Nice.
And I get a pencil and paper. And I asked that they give me a real definitive way of me knowing that they were calling.
Yeah.
So you can do that.
Oh,
You
for sure,
just say,
absolutely.
show me a way.
Yeah.
I have a quick question here. I would love to listen more. It's not like I need an answer right now, but I'd love to keep in mind the question. I'll get that. Where you draw the line between you and not you, as far as the guide connection.
Well, I had a very unique experience
in Waterloo, Iowa, and I was in my early 30s. I did not know Unity, reincarnation, spirits, or anything. And I was out setting up my deck, and I guess I would maybe meditate, but I didn't know anything about meditation. And all of a sudden, this elderly, really old Indian lady came before my eyes. And she communicated with me, I shall guide you. And she was with me many, many years. And it seemed like she came to me more when I was in challenges. And just to say I'm here for you. But I do meditate. I try to meditate daily. Not a long meditation, but maybe 15 to 20 minutes. And it works. I've never seen her lately. I must not be challenged.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
So, first I want to address what you said, then I'm going to give my answer to what Greg said. So, and this actually goes with what Wendy said. So, we talk about like meditation and spiritual practice, but like if you just look in the Bible says pray without ceasing.
Yes.
You know, it's not saying you have this one time, this one 15-minute time, and then all of a sudden you meet God, and then no, it's pray without ceasing. And there was a book that I read really early on by Brother Lawrence called "Practicing the Presence of God," and it's about the whole book. Just to summarize it, is just about holding divinity in your consciousness at all of the time. That's the point. Just all of the time, holding divinity. So he talks about, I wash the dishes, and this is how I wash the dishes. And then he would have a mantra or something that he would say, and I don't remember what the mantra was, but that was his, and it was just a way for him to keep divinity in his consciousness all the time. And so, yeah, and then our guidance comes through that. Now, to Greg's question, Sonia does not really provide an answer to this. I know what my answer is, so I'll give you my answer. And it comes from the Harry Potter series.
Right.
As always.
Yes. Because that book is definitely, second to the
So
Bible.
you're saving yourself with your own Patronus?
No. So there's this moment when Harry is having like a near-death experience. And his mentor, his longtime mentor, is there to kind of transition him into whatever path he's going to take next. And Harry says to his mentor, is this real, or is this all just happening in my head? And his mentor says, of course it's happening in your head, Harry. Why does that mean it's not real? Right? And so for me, when it comes to spiritual guidance, it is a method that allows me to experience a very diverse, to have this very diverse experience. Just like I'm in relationship with, most of the people in this room I've had conversations with, and I've loved them. And you're each unique expressions of the divine. So for me, when it comes to spiritual guidance coming through God, it's just another expression of that diversity within the spirit. That's my answer. What do you think, Greg?
Part of the game of peekaboo.
Right. I mean, we already summarized it. There's just one spirit, Miriam Williamson, the Course in Miracles teacher, says there's only one of us here, But we are still experiencing this diversity in all of these expressions of divinity. And so when we're talking about spiritual guidance coming through from guides, we're just expanding that idea of diversity. And here's the thing, you don't need that to get spiritual guidance. You don't need all of these guides to get spiritual guidance. To me, it's more like it's an adventure. It's enjoyable for me. It's fun. Yeah. So, did you have a comment to that?
No, I just agree 100% with what James is saying. I've heard him use that analogy about a million times, so I could probably say it just like he does with the Harry Potter thing. But it makes sense. It totally makes sense. And I also agree with what you're saying about it being fun. That's why I've enjoyed the book so much, and I still reference back to it and things like that. I tell other people about it because I'm like, check this out. Did you know? It's really cool. I know Stella has said something about her experience. Has anybody else had any other experiences with spirit guides?
You got a mic over here.
Oh, yeah. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. This isn't in response to that, but I just want to say for those that have studied Abraham, and I don't really have much experience with spirit guides. I feel like they're out there, but I haven't really figured out how to contact them. But, you know, Abraham would say, you know, listen to your inner being. And and if you're going in a direction that your inner being says this is not the right way for you, or bad decision or something, you know it. And to me, that's my guide.
Let's say you got your spirit guide.
Yes, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I don't have a name or anything. But I just want to say Greg's question is actually the question. And that is, when is it us and when is it not us? Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Something else on that I wanted to ask,
A little louder.
because I've heard some people, particularly in conservative Christian ideology, use that same, you know, that God is telling me that, for example, you know, same-sex relationships are wrong, and that they have, you know, deeply feel this, and so how do we know, is this really something spiritual versus is this our own biases that are coming up and masquerading as spirit?
I love that question. Do you have an answer for it? Okay. So I know for me, this is my litmus test for just about when people have truth claims, when they have spiritual claims, like I had this experience, is really, I go back to, and it's biblical, I go back to what's called the fruit of the Spirit. And it says the fruit, meaning that this is what it produces, the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. And so to me, and here's the thing, I'm not about judging somebody else's spiritual experience, but for me, I don't take something seriously unless I see fruit. I mean, Jesus said, you will know them by their fruit. Good trees don't produce bad fruit, bad trees don't produce good fruit. And so, to me, if somebody is making a truth claim or a spiritual claim, like I heard from God, whatever, I would say, first of all, for me, I am a skeptic, but I'm not a cynic, which means that I don't automatically write somebody off when they make a claim. But I also don't immediately just dive in and be like, that's 100% true. I wait to see what is the result of this. Is it producing love in that person? Is it producing love in me? Is it expanding our capacity to experience joy on the planet, or peace? Is it bringing down, or I wouldn't say bringing down, maybe elevating us up to what is considered the kingdom of God? You know, that where Jesus prayed, "Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Right. So that's what I look for. I know that answer is going to be different for every individual person, but that's how I would answer.
God wants me to be present.
So, I have just a comment on that, and then on what we were talking about before. So, each one of us is in a different place, and our spirit guides are meeting us where we are. And I can't speak for someone that their spirit guide is talking about the sin of something, because I don't know, but I know there's a time in my life where I was guided to sleep with a holy book on my chest so that demons would not touch me and hurt me and torment me. Now, I know that demons aren't even real. But at that time, for someone to say demons aren't real would have helped me. So for my spirit guides to say, this will help you now from where you are. So everybody's in a different place. And the other one was about the Greg's question. And because I sometimes see spirit guides of people, I don't know if they're all just our higher self. My therapist's husband came in one day, and he had 2 clowns with him. They really were clowns, dressed like clowns. And I didn't know whether to say something or not, but I finally did. You know, I'm already nuts, they know that. So, and he goes, you know, I have known that I really need to start lightening up, you know. So I don't know, is that his higher self or not? And then when I did Native American spirituality, Cam, who ran the sweat lodges, had an older Native American guy and a younger Native American guy. And after the ceremony was over, I went to him and talked to him, and I said, you know, this is what I saw. And he went and got a book, and he opened the book, and he said, is this them? And I said, yeah. So I don't know, I think it's more complicated than sometimes, you know, is it just our higher self, or I don't know.
I think that, especially, it sounds like with you in particular, Wendy, like, I've noticed that the guides also use other people. Like, they use you to bring up the fact that your therapist's husband had clowns with him, and it made him state it out loud, like, oh, I should be lightening up. Like, I've had this feeling, you know, you seeing the clowns, and like the guides use you to, you know, communicate with him. They do that as well. They do that. I mean, I've had them do that with me too. Sometimes if you're just think of somebody for no reason out of the blue that you haven't thought of for a long time, that's usually either one of their guides communicating with you or one of yours. But typically it's one of their guides that's communicating with you to reach out to them.
And of course, it's all the same one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but that's what's cool about it, because it is all the same one, you know.
Unity, baby.
Any other comments or questions?
Tell us more.
So we're going to start, this week we're going to focus on like the certain classification. We'll go into a little bit more of that next week, but Sonia does start with angels. And has anybody ever had like an angelic experience? So, Sonia, the classification of angel is a consciousness within spirit that has not had a physical incarnation. Okay? And they help us through the human journey, but they might not be able to resonate fully with what it means to experience physicality. You want to add to that?
Well, I have a story about.
Tell me a story.
Well, one of the first angels that we will encounter is your guardian angel. And this actually isn't my story, it's a story of a friend of mine, but it's like the perfect example of a guardian angel. So I have a friend that I grew up with who, she and her family were in the Joplin tornado, and their house was demolished around them. And she and her husband and 2 small children rode it out in their hallway with like a twin mattress over them. And literally the only part of their house that was left standing was the front wall. That's it. And when it was over, like the actual tornado had gone through, a woman came to them and helped them get out of the rubble and get out to what was left of the street and find the emergency workers that were there. And afterwards, my friend was like, where did the woman go that helped us? Nobody saw this woman, just them. Like, nobody saw her. Nobody knew who she was talking about. Everybody thought she was crazy. They're like, there was nobody with you. It was just the 4 of you. And she's like, no, there was a woman. She helped us get out of the house. She helped us find you guys. And that was her guardian angel. That's a great example of a guardian angel. And it still gives me chills to this day, so many years later, even recalling that story. So that's one example of a guardian angel. I'm sure lots of people have had stories like that.
We're going to go over here and then over.
Yeah. Just, I don't know if you guys, if anybody has Netflix, there's a movie called The Cokeville Miracle, and if you haven't seen it, it's amazing. It's about this small town in Wyoming years ago. This guy came in with a bomb designed to kill everybody in the school, and I'll tell you just what happens, but you really should see it. All the children spoke of when the bomb went off, all the angels that came down, and they were relatives from years past that were dead that came down, and they just protected them, and nobody died. It is really an amazing movie if you have Netflix.
Don.
I just happened to.
Can't hear you.
I just had a wonderful experience. Your story is just like almost like mine.
Oh, wow.
In the same storm, we were in a house that was totally we were under a mattress in the hallway, and when the storm was over, we tried to salvage everything and couldn't keep it dry. When we went out into the street, a lot happened before this, but we went out into the street and I had just had surgery. I think I was home the day before. I just got home from the surgery.
Welcome home.
You can't imagine how helpless I felt. Anyway, we were standing there in the street, wondering what to do. And a white pickup came right in front of the house and stopped. And he said, "You guys need a ride?" So my wife and I and one other person, I think it was.
Steve and Mike were there.
Oh, they had already shown up, yeah. So two friends had already shown up and were concerned about us. They took us down to 20th Street. It was
We had to
29th,
go through the rubble.
29th
Right.
to 20th Street. They took us down that street, through all the rubble in that pickup truck. Took us just as far as we can go. But we were within a block, I think, of where the end of the devastation. And then, so we all jumped out of the back of the truck. I didn't jump, but
They threw you out.
and we turned around to thank them, and the truck was gone.
Yep.
And the street was full of rubble.
Sure, yeah, it wasn't like you could have taken off. Yeah.
Where he could have gone. The only place he could have gone is where we came from. But it was that was only my first real experience with this kind of touch of heaven. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I know lots of people also, and another reason I always bring up the Joplin tornado, my mom was there that night. She's a nurse, she works in Joplin, and she was there that night when it happened, so she obviously was there all night. But, so and I know lots of people I went to school with lived there, so, but the butterfly people of Joplin, if you've never heard about that, you should look that up. There's lots of articles written about it. Lots of people, particularly children, made claims, and of course we know it's to be true, that there were butterflies and butterfly people around after the storm and during the storm that guided them to places of safety, or were just with them while it was happening. And again, that would be more along the lines of spirit animals, which we will talk about next week, but that's just another form of a guide that can assist you in times of anything, trouble in this case, but.
Yeah, and so in the book, Sonia talks about how guardian angels are really the only type of guide that can intervene outside of your free will, meaning that if something is happening with you, guardian angels can, at certain times, intervene. Whereas in Sonia's worldview, I mean, because I honestly, I don't know. It makes sense, and to me, looks like this is just a way of explaining something that's very universal, right? And in a lot of things, I just don't know for sure, but it does make sense that guardian angels are specifically assigned to you and they can intervene in certain circumstances, whereas all of the other guides, you have to ask for guidance, or you have to, and to me, asking for guidance doesn't necessarily mean identifying who the guardian or who the guide is and saying their name and saying, "Please help me." To me, that's not it. Just a call for help will bring about, or a call for assistance will bring about guidance for anyone. It's universally available.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Especially about the fact that, the asking thing. That's just Wendy.
So, it's real obvious if I'm in a situation that it's right there and I call out right that minute and ask for something, ask for help, I will know that I'm the one that's asking. But I truly don't believe that The idea that there are guardian angels that come and help some people and don't help some people seems like we're back to a capricious God again. And I don't believe in a capricious God. I believe that we are here experiencing our own creation as we go along. However, there are times that I have asked for things without words, you know, and the powers that be are responding to all of that. Just because I don't remember asking doesn't mean I didn't ask. And that's all it is. Going back to a capricious God in a world that I like you, don't like you, you know. That's why I don't think they can just intervene.
Yeah, and I'm just explaining Sonia's viewpoint. Like I said, I'm not really sure that's how it works, you know. This is just a way of explaining some universal principles. So, and one nice thing about Unity is that, you know, we're in charge of our spiritual development. We're in charge of our personal evolution.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to actually say it's very much about the asking, right? The call for assistance and relate personal. So I mean, that's what I do when I talk. It's basically 1 or 2 breaths, and all right, let's do this. Let's get the download and let's go. And whether you call it channeling or just focusing, or it doesn't matter what you call it. But the intention is, I will take some help here, and that's all that it takes.
Always.
Yeah.
And I think that part of it, when we're talking about spiritual guidance or spirit guides, is you know, that idea that we are always tapped in, and holding that idea of divinity within our consciousness, that support is always there. We'll move on to guardian angels, the archangels. Archangels, right. Archangels. So archangels, I had to list them all because there's a lot of people really into archangels and they have their specific archangel that they work with. I know a lot of people work with Michael. They like Michael. Michael is supposed to be the protection angel. Gabriel is supposed to help people communicate, like teachers and authors for, Gabriel. Raphael is the healing angel. I do have a story about Raphael, though. And years ago, I don't know what year it was, but several years ago, my dad had a heart attack and was in the hospital and needed surgery. And my mom called me. I was living in Kansas City. They were in Michigan. My mom called me and was explaining the situation, was explaining it in very dire language. And I was just sitting in my vehicle on the phone with her, and I just started smelling roses, like a strong smell of roses. And I just calmed down, and I said, Mom, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. In the spiritual center I was a part of in Kansas City, that following Sunday, the minister came to me and said, I don't know what this is, but you're supposed to have this picture. It's a picture of the Archangel Raphael. And it was a picture of an angel throwing down roses. And I was going to bring it, and I forgot. But yeah, it was a picture of, and if you look at the Archangel Raphael, and see, I didn't know the mythology surrounding Raphael, but in almost every picture, it's throwing down roses. And I was like, oh, okay, so these archangel things, these are, there's something here. So Raphael is the archangel associated with healing. Then there's Uriel. I'm not going to give you a description of all of them. Uriel, Raguel, Shamuel, Ramiel, Sandalphon, and Metatron. Those are the ones. A lot of people really like Metatron.
No, yeah.
Especially the kids.
So how many does that make?
There are. Oh, and by the way, there are more in other books that I've read. That makes 2, 4, 6, 7, 9.
Could you give a description on what's the difference between the guardian angels and archangels?
Sure. So, in this, and I've read a few books on archangels, but in this book, archangels are sort of like responsible for broad areas.
Lieutenants.
So Michael is protection, and Gabriel is, like if you read in spiritual texts, whether it's in Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, Gabriel's always the one that shows up with a message. Like, I gotta tell you something, right?
Hermes.
Like I said, Raphael is all about healing. can't remember a lot of these because, like I said, I don't really work with them. Metatron I know for sure is sacred geometry.
Metatron's cube.
Yeah. And so, in Sandalphon and Metatron, supposedly in the mythology, had a human existence as well.
Cool.
Can we talk about archangels?
No, I don't know as much about archangels because like James, I don't they're not really. I did teach the younger kids about them last year after we did this class because I thought they would think it was really cool. Actually, there's a thing in the hallway actually of the youth wing. If you want to go check it out, it's hanging up. It gives a descriptor of each one of these archangels if you want to know more about them. It's still hanging on the wall there in the hallway. But yeah, like James said, and the main difference I think also that Sonia actually portrays in the book between guardian angels and archangels is that guardian angels will be with you like from the beginning, like from your birth. Like they will be there from the beginning, even before your birth. Really, is what she says in her book. That's what she says, that your guardian angel or angels, if you have more than one, will be with you from the beginning. And like James said, the archangels are more of a broader scope, and the guardian angels are more directly,
It's an assignment.
Yes,
Right. It's an assignment
yeah.
for each individual.
Kind of like in It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
The movie, yeah. That was his guardian angel.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Yep.
I will tell you too, in ancient Semitic languages, means deity. So Michael is the power of God or protection of God. Raphael is the healing of God. Uriel is the likeness of God.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the El, in angel, is a part of Elyon in the Hebrew scriptures, which is the counsel of God. Now, in modern English translations, you just see that as God, or oftentimes even translated as Lord. But and we talked about it in the deconstruction stuff that we did. But the Hebrew scriptures and the Semitic languages where all these words come from, they did not believe they were not monotheistic, right? And so we're sort of, through talking about this, sort of reclaiming that idea that of a divine counsel in support of us that is universal as one spirit. There's only one presence, one power in the universe in my life, which is kind of how Unity puts it. But we're sort of also reclaiming this idea that there's diversity within that. That makes sense? I just did I went back to we're not doing deconstruction today. I don't know what I was doing. But next one? Okay.
It's interesting though.
It is interesting. Oh, and another thing about this book, so she gives you links to download meditations, and I went through they're kind of guided meditations. I really enjoyed the guided meditations for the archangels, so we wanted to mention that too. Anything else I missed? Oh, I skipped one. The next thing she talks about is the ministry of angels.
Yes. So the ministry of angels they are the bringers of goodness. So they're gifts, they usher surprises, they delight in your senses, they ease your way. So it's kind of like almost like a council, like you were saying. It's like, they're kind of the all, seeing, all knowing. They do all the things.
the hosts of Lord of Hosts.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have different classifications of angels.
No, you tell me when to go. I have no idea.
I don't either.
Yeah. So we'll just skip that one.
Yeah, we'll just skip that.
I did want to mention with the ministry of angels, because I had experience when I was a little kid. And I remember sensing like spirits and entities. And for a long time, I felt like there were these two giant, like angelic beings that followed me around, which I thought of last time. I was like, oh, that would fit with the ministry of angels. Because the ministry of angels is just any interaction that we have with angels that are, sort of supportive, right? And so for weeks I walked around, and then we were doing some sort of like music, like we're singing a song, and we started singing, "Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life," which is from the Psalms, right? And these big entities were like, "I'm goodness, and I'm mercy," and I'm like, "Oh, this is neat." And so like, and that's one thing that I have kept in my consciousness, especially when I've experienced challenging times. That I have held in my consciousness that, oh, goodness and mercy right behind me. It doesn't matter. I've got backup here all of the time, right? And so that's just one example that I had, because we had a discussion about this class before we sat down. We were like, I don't know about the ministry of angels. I don't know what we're going to say. Yeah. And that's what we came up. And that's what I came up with last time. I was like, wait a minute, that would be a good example of the ministry of angels. So
yeah, no, that's a very good example actually, because we really couldn't either one of us come up with one either night when we were talking about this. They also can help with questions. So like you can specifically ask them questions like, help me with a project. This is more like where one of you mentioned like asking specifically for help on things. So like you can say, help me with a project, lead me toward open doors, make travel easy and safe. Like you can be specific with things like that with the ministry of angels, which is kind of cool. Because some people like to be more specific in their intentional with their questions instead of just, the broad scope of it. Some people are more like, show me exactly what I'm supposed to do. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do a more roundabout way of it, but typically they will, in this instance, they will be more straightforward if you are more straightforward with the questions.
Well, I think that's just true in general, though. The more we can approach life with a little bit of intention, we're going to get some better results when we have a bit more intention. All right, living with angelic influences. So, like I said, angels are, according to this book, and according to many things that I've read, angels are helpers that have not had a human incarnation, whereas guides tend to have a human incarnation. Or there are other forms of guides too that we're going to talk about. But we did want to take a moment and have any one of you experience angels, or have a story, or even have a question about the angelic realm.
You talked about the hosts or the ministry of angels being able to answer questions and things. You want to draw any parallels to that as like the a way to access the Akashic record?
Yes. And I think that Metatron is associated with the Akashic records as well. Yeah. Oh, somebody said yes. Can you elaborate on that? Because I don't know a whole bunch about Metatron.
Well, that's basically all I know about.
Oh, that's it. It is an affirmative, though. Definitely a way to access the Akashic records.
Yeah. It's one of those things people drop out in conversation, but everybody says that.
Yeah, everyone says that. Okay. I think it's something that I had heard in the past as well. It's like, okay.
So I have a question about this thing about angels not having experienced a physical entity yet, and why does that even matter?
Let's say that it does. Sorry. Sorry. This is just in the back.
Greg?
No.
Greg has an answer.
Yes, peanut gallery?
No. What do you?
I'm interested.
Oh, go ahead if you're answering that specifically.
It's going to be off the top.
Put you on the spot.
So the actual physical incarnation experience is extremely important because, like, you can't resonate with hunger unless you have ever been hungry. And an angel that has never been, a spirit, a consciousness that has never been hungry, can't. You can intellectually understand the concept of hunger, but the actual experience itself is something that must be felt to be resonated with. And so beings that have, like, that's why we're here, is to feel hunger, is to feel that type of stuff. And so I would posit that you could connect much easier with someone as a physical incarnation if they also could know what it's like to be a physically incarnated being, rather than only ever being ethereal. Again, I don't have a.
I think that was good. I mean, that makes sense. You know, angels are very, you know, like the way that Sonia describes them, very high vibration beings, but they can't empathize with us in the same way that guides that have experienced physicality can empathize.
My second question, follow up to that, is then how do you know? As a person experiencing some type of a guide, how would you know that it was an angel that had never been asked?
That's a good question. I don't know that this book answers that question. I know that this book, you know, what this book does is it allows you to contextualize possibly experiences that you may have had, or there's a lot of people that haven't had any experiences like these, and so this book maybe would give them language to, or give them opportunities to maybe step into that, to ask their guides. And I do think that this book, you know, language is funny. Like you have to be able to, you know, we're talking about something that's ineffable, and we're trying to put that into words, right? And so there are things in this book and all of the other books about spirituality that are going to speak very definitively on things that aren't definitive, like things that we don't know. Because, and especially if you're going to start talking about God, you know, like we're talking about angels right now. El means the divine council, but then we also said, well, this is all interconnected. There's only one spirit, really. And so I think that this book does speak with authority, but only to help us conceptualize it. Not necessarily. I don't know that necessarily this is exactly how everything works. So when we say angels are consciousness that has never had a human experience, like, I don't even know what that means really. You know, like, especially if there's only one, you know, if there's only one spirit, like, I don't know. It is just a way to help us understand the vibration of a higher thought. So, for example, Michael, if somebody is feeling unsafe, they could call on Michael to bring about the sensation of safety. Raphael, the experience that I had, which I never called out for, it just sort of happened, where the roses filled the car. And I didn't have the language to conceptualize that. It ended up happening that somebody else said, hey, here's a picture, and there were roses being turned out.
Beat you over the head with it.
So, but no, and so with the archangels, those are the very high thoughts, I guess you could say. With guardian angels, those are that's energy that's been assigned to us. I'm just trying to give a different language that maybe helps, bridge the gap here. Energy that is assigned to us to keep us safe. The ministry of angels is just any high vibration that we ever experience. And again, I don't know that Sonia would say that, but that's how I would explain it to bridge the gap to that question. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, a couple comments. One of them way back, the messages from angel, guidance. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't get real specific guidance sometimes. Most of my guidance is saying it's going to be okay, you're loved, trust this process. Yeah, it's a good thing for you to continue doing this right now. So it's not like, go from A to B and pick up C.
Absolutely.
Right, and so the next one is, I have experience with human doing angelic work, and that is my son that passed when he was 19, came in a full body apparition, full body, I could touch him. But what he says he's doing right now is when little children pass, he goes and gets them, and when little children are being born, he's with the group that brings their spirits down. So that is a thing that he does. But also, You know, when I think of God, and it's this big woman kind of like me, only a lot bigger, because I can climb up in her lap, and a big rocking chair, and she rocks me, and she puts a snuggie around me, and she tells me I'm okay and everything's okay. And the idea of all of these angelic beings and what they represent, the best thing I can say to take in any of that is, if it helps you to believe that Archangel Michael is battling for you, then that's the one you need to make friends with in that, because if it brings you to a place where you feel like life is good without help, like mine. And obviously, those of you who know me, I'm not going to have a big father being up there that's helping me, because that just scares me. So, yeah, it's...
Belief.
Yeah, let it work for you, instead of trying to find out all the ones and how to please them, and, you know.
Well, and I will tell you the goal, like there are spiritual traditions that do function in exchange, meaning that you have to please, you have to, we have 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes. Okay, but this book is not that. This book is not that. So, and angels just help us because we have opened ourselves up to help, right? Yeah. Do you have a final statement before we do the announcements?
No, but Ellie, did you want to say something real fast? No, okay. No, just to expound on what Wendy was saying, I agree 100%. Like, I don't feel like the guides say specific things like Wendy was saying. And next week we'll talk more about something that I personally do. It has to do with journaling and stuff, and kind of deciphering what they're trying to tell you, because sometimes you have to try to decipher it. they're not specific. So Wendy hit the nail on the head there. But we will talk about that more next week.
Yes, we will.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
a lot to talk about, and we will get through it. But
Yeah.
this is great. You're going to do the announcements. Can we get somebody to pass the basket?
It's been passed.
Oh, the basket's already. All right, good.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. Okay, so announcements. The monthly drum circle will be this Thursday, January 4th. It's already January. At 6:30 p.m. All are welcome to join. If you have a drum, bring it. If you don't, we have extras here at the church. Next Sunday at 9:15 in the New Thought and World Religion Adult Sunday School class, James and I, can you take that please? Will present Ask Your Guides, Connecting Your Divine Support System, Part 2. Our annual White Stone ceremony will be next Sunday, January 7th, during the celebration service. The Soulful Food Group will meet next Sunday, January 7th at 4 p.m. This is a women's group that provides emotional eating support. If you have questions or would like to join, please contact Kat at catbell@unityofspringfield.org. I'm going to add to that announcement. I do believe she made a post about it, that she's going strictly virtual on those with Zoom meetings, so just FYI on that. But if you have any questions, just contact Kat. We will do an all-church visioning at 10 a.m. on January 13th, facilitated by Sue and based on Dr. Reverend Michael Beckwith's visioning process. Through a guided meditation, we will open ourselves up to Spirit, asking what is the highest vision for Unity of Springfield, what wants to emerge as us. All are welcome to participate. I came to the visioning last year. It was amazing. I think everybody should come. Also on January 13th, Bobby will facilitate the second Saturday social Unity at 1 p.m. This is a social time for all to come together in the spirit of unity over tea or coffee and snacks. Sounds like a lot of fun. And Brian and Devin Hoover from Discovering the Soul will facilitate a relationship workshop on January 20th from 1 to 3. Brian says, please join us for this free 2-hour workshop where we will highlight the deeper purpose and potential for the relationship challenges we all face. Whether you are in a good relationship, in the middle of an intense or disconnected relationship, or simply want to deepen your experience of relationship, come be a part of our discussion as we become more fulfilled by this important piece of our soul work.
All right.
That's it.
That's it. And if you, you were done.
What?
Freeman's workshop, was it on there?
Oh, it is, but, I mean, he'll talk about it during service. Do you want me to?
There
Yeah.
are
I just wanted to
2024 calendars out there on the table, and everyone is welcome to take one. They're Unity, and the pictures are beautiful. They're all abilities.
I love a good calendar.
Me too. And I was going to say, I didn't mention this, but if you're watching online and you would like to give, you can go to www.unityofspringfield.org to do so. And that's it. We'll meet in the back.
Good job. Brendan's workshop, yeah. He'll talk about things, so this is why.